As a brand new parent, your baby's health and well being suddenly becomes the most important thing in the world to you. As a parent myself, I completely get it. So, in this video, I want to dive into what is the most critical piece to lay a solid foundation to help your baby succeed and thrive when it comes to their growth and development. And the reason I want to share this is it's often the most overlooked piece. It has to do with your child's labor and delivery. You see, when a baby is born, even during a normal, natural, pretty smooth delivery, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on their head and as a result on their neck as they're being brought into the world. Now, if you add in the US, almost a third of deliveries happen via C section or other stresses like induction, forceps, suction, baby being stuck and needing manual assistance to get pulled out, you can see why and stress early on might start to add up for a baby. The reason this is that their neck, when they're first born, is not protected. They don't have the muscles and the strength that even a toddler or certainly a teenager or an adult has to protect this area. So, I want to share with you why this is most critical because what we see in our office over and over again is this part of your child's body actually houses the most important part of their nervous system. It's the brainstem. So I'm going to give you an example of baby Isla here in a moment. I'm going to show you her scans and what we look for because what we've been seeing really commonly now is we're getting even more 3 and 4 month old infants than usual. And many people wonder, why would an infant need a pediatric chiropractor? And what it has to do is going back to that labor and delivery. And this is something I can relate to. When my wife was pregnant with our son, she broke her ankle at 34 weeks. She needed a surgery. It threw her pelvis out. It ended up in a 30-hour labor, and my son was born with a broken collarbone and very crunched head and neck as a result of that difficult labor. What happens then is it starts to throw baby's nervous system into a stress mode very early on. So parents come to see us typically because the foundation of baby's nervous system is off, and they know that because they're not doing the most foundational things. What are those? Eating, sleeping, and pooping. Right? When a baby's first born, they're coming into the world and they need to now get nourishment on their own. So they need to start eating. If you notice your baby doesn't have a very good latch, or maybe they bring food in, but now they start to spit it back up. In baby Isla's case here, I'll show with you in a moment. She came in at 4 months, and after she would nurse, she would have such severe reflux, she would throw up 3 to 5 times, start to spit up and throw up after each time she fed. So if baby's not able to keep food down, that's a sign that their nervous system is stuck in stress mode. If they're not now able to then digest the food and poop it out and they're constantly constipated, that's another clue. And then the other piece we look for is, how is a baby moving? Are they relaxed or are they stiff and are they tense? In baby Isla's case, mom said she would always be rigid. When I walked into the exam room, mom was holding her. And instead of being soft and relaxed and resting onto mom's shoulder, she was straight upright, stiff as a board. I remember telling my son this, and he was like, "What? The baby was stiff as a board?" But it was a sign that her nervous system was stuck in stress because her muscles couldn't relax. Mom was worried because during tummy time, when she would go on her belly, her head would be rigid up and her arms would be straight back, like she was doing a Superman pose. That was the only way she could be on her belly because she couldn't relax and even bring her arms to the front. So, in this case, if you notice your baby being uncomfortable, or maybe they're just fussy all day long, they never really settle in. Maybe they have a witching hour at night. Those are some of the signs of a colicky baby. That's often now leads to a baby that's not sleeping well because they never really settle in and feel comfortable. Their nervous system is always on edge, so they're up longer than they need to be. Or they sleep a little bit and then they become restless and awake again. So eating, sleeping, pooping, being able to relax into mom and dad, to feel soft and smooth, these are all signs of a baby whose nervous system is also calm and relaxed. What we see is in the labor and delivery process, it can start to stress the upper neck, which is air traffic control for the nervous system. All the signals from the brain to get to anywhere in the body have to pass through the neck. And there's one of the most critical nerves that puts a baby into healing mode. That's called the vagus nerve. So I want to bring up baby eyelid scans here again. What we're looking for when a baby comes into our office is we do this a thermal scan. It's very gentle, nothing goes in the body, nothing comes out of the body. So we can do it with newborns perfectly safe. But we're looking for these white bars. If we see areas that are off, we might see green, blue, or red, mild, moderate, significant, if there's areas of the nervous system that are under stress. So in baby Isla's case, you can see a tremendous amount of stress in her upper neck. Now, I want to point out in her case, labor and delivery actually went pretty smooth. Mom said 12-hour labor, 20 minutes of pushing, nothing really noteworthy. And that's one of the things to emphasize too, is that it doesn't have to be an incredibly stressful labor and delivery. We had one mom I talked to a month ago who, after 48 hours of labor, baby still wasn't progressing because mom wasn't dilating and it ended in a C-section. That's an example of a more extreme labor that it makes perfect sense. Baby's going to be thrown off because you have 48 hours of pressure of pushing on her head and stressing her neck. Now, in baby Isla's case, it was a pretty simple birth, but yet it's still a lot of stress. So when this part of the nervous system is thrown off, as I mentioned, it specifically affects the major brake pedal. It's called the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve that comes from the brainstem is the brake pedal that calms the nervous system. It allows us to turn our brain off to sleep at night. It allows our digestive tract to move food in, down, and out. So it allows nursing and pooping in a baby. It allows the nervous system to feel calm and grounded, to let the muscles relax. So foundationally, when we're checking out a baby, we want to see that the foundation of their nervous system is solid. Can they eat? Can they sleep? Can they poop? Do they feel comfortable in their body? Because a newborn baby isn't paying bills. They're not going to prom. They're not having to study hard for their ACT test. There's not a whole lot going on in the world. They should be able to do all these things very easily. When the nervous system can do those things easily, it sets the nervous system up for the next phase of development. This is getting the sensory and motor system online. Now, when a baby's born, as we talked about, their neck should be pretty wobbly. Their body should move with ease. If it's tense and rigid, or in baby Isla's case, she preferred looking to the left. She was always looking to one side. It made nursing on one side difficult, one side easier. Now, when her motor system, her muscle system is starting to come online, it's going to be tough in her case to have tummy time because everything went into this rigid protection mode. Or if she's trying to lie on her back and check out the noise of her brother over here or hear the vacuum cleaner over there, well, she's not going to be able to fully move because she's going to prefer looking to one side. So when it comes to then rolling, sitting, crawling, walking, suddenly we see these motor milestones start to become delayed as well. So that's the next section of baby's development, is to be able to control their muscles on their own. And if it's stuck in stress, it's going to be tough to do so. Now we go to the next tier, which is getting the gut and the immune system online, introducing solids to baby. Maybe they start daycare, or they're going to preschool, they're going to ECFE classes, they're going out in the world, and their immune system is starting to interact with the different bugs out there. What we see is, if the foundation hasn't been laid properly, now we see a kiddo that when it comes time to eat foods, maybe they don't like the texture in their mouth, or they don't have the coordination to chew and swallow. Maybe it really throws their digestion off every time a new food is introduced. Or you see your kiddo start to be exposed to these bugs, and instead of getting exposed, getting sick, but then learning and now going back to the same environment and doing better, they go in that environment and they get sick with the same thing over and over and over again. They start to become congested. Maybe you notice rashes, eczema on their skin. Maybe they get chronic ear infections. They get a cold and it just sits there instead of draining out. These are signs, again, that their nervous system's foundation isn't set up for success, because when these new things come at them, they can't adapt and deal with them. Now, ultimately, as we move up the pyramid of baby's development, we get to the higher level of the brain. This is where speech starts to come into play, where emotions and moods and thinking about the world come into play, as this front part of the brain starts to come online, baby starts to test, or the toddler starts to test with the terrible twos or the teenager years where emotions start to come on really big because baby's trying to figure out, or toddler's trying to figure out, how do I interact with the world? What we see is if the nervous system has been stuck in stress from the beginning and that stress stays stuck on, now these emotions and these behaviors start to become really big. What could be a 5-minute meltdown turns into a half an hour and a half, because baby's nervous system gets spilled over the edge with this meltdown and it can't come down from it. So that's why we're so passionate about helping kids early on. Because if you see a baby that isn't sleeping well, that's colicky, that's refluxy, that looks to one side, that feels rigid, instead of looking at it as something they'll outgrow, we look at it as something we want to help with right away. So if we go back to baby Isla's case, fortunately, she came to see us at 4 months old, and we got to working on this neck area right away. The cool thing was, as this area of stress started to clear out within the first couple weeks of care, I was checking her, and suddenly, instead of this tense, rigid baby that was stiff as a board, suddenly she was moving more pliable, more free. When mom would hold her, she was resting into mom. Her reflux, instead of spitting up 3 to 5 times after every feeding, mom and dad started noticing she's digesting her food way better. Maybe she has a little spit up, but it's actually moving down the way it should. Her pooping became easier. She started to be able to look both ways. And as she was starting to learn how to roll now, as we've been seeing her for a few months, she's able to do so evenly with both sides and do it with ease. So that's the honor that we get, is to be able to get her nervous system in a good state early on. So now, as she is going through these layers of development, she's not having to work through this stuck stress pattern, but she can work off of a solid foundation. So if that resonates with you, if you're curious to see what your baby's scans look like, whether labor and delivery was pretty easy or you know it was a challenge, and you see some of these early signs happening, we'd love to be a resource. So check out our website, shoot us a message. We're here for you, and we're here to help your baby thrive in the world.